was like Astro there as well, and blah blah blah. The first time I did Red Wine was just, it was literally a pivotal moment in my life, I think, you know, because you're like the Beatles from Birmingham, you know, so to be stood there singing that song with the bloke off the telly on top of the Pops who sang that song, doing it with him in front of an audience that as soon as he started singing, it just kind of erupted.
Really, so we're gonna go right back from there. So where was you born, and what was a little bit about your childhood?
I was born in 1978 in a place called Moseley in Birmingham. Yeah, you got one. Yeah.
Got the sound effects ready.
So yeah, I was born in Moseley in Birmingham, which is just up the road from Borsall Heath, which is where Ali Campbell, the Campbells, are from. Yeah. Moseley in Birmingham is kind of, I would say, very artistic, bohemian kind of place to be. It's very cool. There are lots of bars, lots of coffee shops, lots of shops selling interesting crystals and that kind of thing. It's a very welcoming place, actually. Moseley. It's a nice place to be. Yeah.
Is it kind of a working class town? Is it a working class town? And
I wouldn't say Moseley was working class. It's I would say it's predominantly middle class, actually. But there are, like any area, it goes up and down, you know, in class. But the people that are in there are a mixture. I mean, there's some beautiful houses, some beautiful, huge Edwardian and Victorian houses in Moseley. But there's also the areas on the outskirts that are full of the real people, you know, where I like to be, where I come from, basically. And that's the thing with Moseley, because the bars and the pubs, there's so many of them, you meet so many different characters and you can talk about so many different things, and you can see, I mean, there used to be a guy, I mean, if you're from Moseley or them neck of the woods, he used to be, sadly he's passed away, I think 2 or 3 years ago, but he used to be called Pete the Feet. And he used to stand on the doorway of the pubs in Moseley, in the basically right in the centre of Moseley, and he was always barefoot. Never ever saw him with a pair of shoes on, ever, even in snow. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And he used to stand on the doorstep with a cowboy hat on, and he used to make little leather pouches for lighters and stuff like that. And he was just a wonderful, wonderful character. But it's just full of people like that, you know what I mean? Really creative and artistic, and you know, painters and musicians and dancers. And there's a dance college there. There's a dance school. It's great, man. I love it. I wouldn't be anywhere else, you know.
And was you your only child, or you got brothers and sisters as well?
No, I'm an only child, single parent. My mum had me quite late in life, actually. She had me when she was 39. She was born in 34, so she went through the whole of the Second World War and stuff.
And was she musical herself, your mum?
Not at all. No, not at all. There isn't really anybody in my family that was musical, bar my father, who passed away 3 months before I was born with cancer. Yeah, he used to sing. He used to sing in the clubs. He's very much kind of like Frank Sinatra, that kind of vibe, the swing stuff. But
so maybe it come through your father, and maybe that
maybe. I mean, there was nobody that influenced me, you know, in the family in that way. There was nobody musical, so I think it was quite a surprise for a lot of them when I started doing music. It was that case of, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a singer, and then the little laughs in the background, you know.
Yeah. Was there any like defining moment when you remember, like, what was you like growing up in terms of like, was you more into sports before music, or was you playing with friends, and like what was your first kind of break into music where you thought, I'll give that a go?
I'll tell you what it was. When I was really young, at the age of 9, my mother started taking me to karate lessons, because she thought me having karate lessons would put me in a room full of different people, because I was so painfully shy I mean,
Yeah.
painting, you'd only have to kind of say hello to me and I'd turn claret, you know what I mean? I couldn't talk. It was terrible. And doing karate brought me out my shell a little bit. Musically, I was always fascinated with music. It was the one thing that used to take me off with headphones, and my mum had one of those little portable record players, and I would listen to that in my bedroom. ABBA was one of the first bands that really drew my attention to music. Gimme, 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 that song, still to this day, the bass line in that song gives me goosebumps. Great tunes even to this. A little bit like overplayed with on holiday camps and that sometimes, but yeah, absolutely.
but good, great tunes.
So, they're amazing. But and then it was Shaking Stevens, and then I was into Bucks Fizz, and you know, all that kind of crappy music when I was young. But I think that the poignant moment when I was young was I always wanted to sing, and I was even embarrassed being on my own in my bedroom singing along. Sometimes I'd hear my own voice and I'd go red on my own. It was ridiculous.
Embarrass yourself.
It was mental. I just like, hey, can you embarrass yourself? You know, when you're on your own, it's ridiculous. But the one day I always thought I could sing, but I hadn't got the balls to just go for it. But the one day my mum was out and I was in the bedroom and I just went for it, and it sounded what I thought at the time. I thought it sounded pretty cool. And it was the same as the record. I kind of kept in tune and hit the notes that the singer was. I can't remember who it was.
So you're just kind of learning as you go along, and just singing to the radio or whatever's playing and stuff like that as well.
Absolutely.
That's really interesting in terms of different approach, because it was my uncle that kind of got me into music, and before that I was just football mad, playing football around the estate I grew up on, and it actually got me into like playing drums I was learning on a biscuit tin and just bashing away at the drums and that, and it was like that was like, you know, so massive to give me a skill growing up, you know, in a working class estate with a single parent environment and stuff. And it's so important to have a skill like that as well, where you think, I can give this a go, you know, and do it. So so getting back to, you're saying you didn't, you know, you kind of discovered it yourself and your voice. So when you discovered so coming out of the bedroom now then, and you're and you've got past the
like, I'm not shy anymore. What the hell happened?
What happened there? And actually that's another interesting conversation. Like, a lot of top performers are really introvert and shy. You know, you look at people like Bowie, Michael Jackson. Look at Jackson for, you know, like completely changes persona when he goes on stage. A lot of comedians are like that as well, ain't they? You know, like quite insecure.
That's what it is. You really hit the nail on the head. And I always tell this to everybody, and I will go back to the being shy in my own thing in a minute. But doing tours and like obviously being with Ali and stuff, I've done, you know, the smaller gigs, the theatres, the arenas, and even up to the stadiums. You know what I mean? I am still quite shy. I mean, I truly am. And even doing this to some extent, it's like performing live. It's a persona, and you turn into a different person. You have to, because I would die. You know, if I was just stood in front of 10,000 people being me, I would die inside. You know, I would crumble. So you have to kind of. It's like a switch. You flick the switch and you go out and you become that person.
As
soon as you come off, that's the come down, and you kind of go off, and I kind of come back down and be Matt Hoy again, the normal Matt Hoy. But I think that was what I kind of had to discover with the shyness thing, that it didn't have to be me that was the one that put my voice out there. I could turn into somebody else and be a you know, Matt Hoy the singer, and then stop being that person. I think that's what it was. That's what changed me, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And loads of people have their own you know, insecurities, or some people are shy in reverse, where they, you know, he talk too much, or
I
they're
think
too
I'm
loud.
related to, I mean, you know, when you have your telephone voice.
That's I used to have my cool telephone voice. You might. I used to, when I talk to girls with a telephone voice, with that hello, how's it going? With your Johnny Depp voice.
Years, but hi, how you doing? That's not me. You know,
yeah, definitely. Cool. So yeah. So going back to so you discovered you could sing when you was younger. So was you in bands, or did you did you do performances like going as you was a teenager?
I did basically, when we were talking off camera before, I did all we used to call the spit and sawdust pubs, the ones where you would just perform into the local bloke in the corner and the other one with his dog, his whippet, you know what I mean? I mean, he's trying to get out the house for an hour. It just happened to be a band on. I did all of those up and down the M6 in a transit van to London, up north, doing that kind of stuff. But I started off just literally going to the local rehearsal rooms, because they always used to have the notice boards, where they advertised for drummers and guitarists, bass players, singers. Yeah. And I used to look for the adverts for singers wanted, and there was one that I came across, which was for a soul and Motown band, and I thought I'd give that a go. But I was so completely inexperienced, I balls the whole thing up, and I only managed to sing 2 songs, and I don't know what I was so naive, it was ridiculous. I kind of just bowled in there thinking that I could sing anything. I mean, I didn't know the words to anything. These songs kind of were familiar to me as walking in there, and they'd start playing them. They'd go, "Do you actually know the words to these songs?" And I kind of go, "Yeah, I can learn them, don't worry. But just listen to the voice, you know what I mean?" Yeah. And the voice lasted about 3 songs, and I got all the cramps and blah, blah, blah. So that was the end of that. I said to my mum, I said, "Look, I know I can sing, but when I get nervous or when it all tightens up and nothing will come out." Yeah. So she said, "You need singing lessons then." So I went to a wonderful woman in Perry Bar, in a place in Birmingham, and her name was Joanne Dwyer, and she was a former opera singer. Yeah. And she I only went there for about 6 months, but she kind of gave me all the techniques and how to breathe and the positioning and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. She was absolutely amazing. And she those 6 months stood me up for the rest of my career. I always fell back on those little things that she taught me and what to do. And if ever I panicked or got nervous, you just kind of center yourself. And
so she kind of like brought did she work on your like confidence, and were you building your confidence would you say your confidence was growing as you was because I remember my first ever show, I was so like wriggled with nerves, and I think it's quite natural because you were doing something unnatural. But yeah, did you learn a lot from the singer? Did she instill? What did she instill?
She did. I think that the confidence came once I knew I could sing and I wasn't going to lose it. That gave me more confidence. I've always, I think I suffer with a thing called aphasia, where I really struggle to retain information. So I really find it hard to remember lyrics. Yeah. So that was always, for me, that was the main thing I used to get the collywobbles about when I did a live performance. I was terrified of forgetting the lyrics in front of an audience and just seeing the whites of people's eyes as they kind of see me die a death, you know what I mean? And that was the problem. I used to have sleepless nights about worrying for like the next day. And I also used to, if I had a gig, say on the Friday, the Thursday, it was guaranteed I'd get a cold. Yeah, and that was all psychological as well, and getting out of that over the years, it's really weird when I think back of all the little things that I used to concern myself with and worry about.
Yeah, well, that's like I think it's quite interesting in terms of performers, as we were saying before as well, like with myself when I'm performing and doing these bigger shows that I had not done up until this point of my career, and then like you're just saying, then you start unnecessarily overthinking too much. So the night before, you say you play when we've just recently done Wembley, and you say, "Oh, I can't sleep," and then you plant that seed in your head. Oh, how about if I turn up to the gig without any sleep, and then I've still got to perform? And those are like can really, really hit you. At the time, it seems so massive, and then you start to go, oh, but now what was I worrying about? I've done shows on no sleep, and I'm sure you have as well, on no sleep whatsoever. And you go, because you still manage to somehow get through it. And when you get through it, that feeling of that liberation is like, and then you feel like, oh, actually, come on, bring on the next one. I can do anything now. And then I think that's such a feeling that's like for living in the moment, really, because really nothing matters in that sense, does it? Because you think,
No,
why was I
absolutely.
thinking that? Why was I overthinking that? Does it really matter in the grand scheme of things? Like,
Well, I think also from what you've said, it's like when you find yourself in that situation, you think on your feet as well. Because I mean, I have when I've been on tour, we've done like show, arenas and stuff like that. And being Ali's only backing vocalist at the time,
yeah,
that always was on my mind as well. Because what if my voice goes? Then there's going to be no backing vocals
yeah,
for
yeah,
the show. And I've done shows where literally I've turned up and I've got a head full of cold and I could hardly speak. I've had a brandy. I've gone on stage and done 2 hours with Ali, and he's been fine. And then I've came off, and it's all come back out again. He just completely went for the show. And I think whether it's adrenaline that suppressed it, or whether it is, part of your subconscious, whether you can turn things on or off. But I find it insane how the body reacts to certain situations and how you deal with that.
Yeah, it's that fight or flight thing, isn't it? Because what as performers and the shows, where it is for the average person, it's quite an unnatural thing to do, to go on stage with that amount of people, so your body, I imagine, is going into a bit of a fight or flight mode where you wriggled in it with anxiety, or you're ready to survive that moment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think the thing as well when we've done. I mean, some of the stadium shows I've done with Ali are like 50 to 100,000 people.
Yeah.
Those didn't bother me in the end. It was literally, I never got nerves either when I was with Ali, because I don't know what it was. I kind of knew what I was doing. I knew where I was. And I'm sure you have the same thing. When you're on stage and you've got a certain setup on stage, that stage never changes. So you could be in New York or London or Japan or anywhere. Once you're on that stage, it's like your living room or your bedroom. It's like very familiar, and it's positioned in the same distances, and Pops is always there, and Slowly's always there, and Ali's always there, and Astro was a bit further on. So it always looked the same no matter where I was. So I never got nervous. And when we did the smaller gigs, and then they were there, and like I said before, you could see the whites of people's eyes right in front of you. Oh my God, my knees started knocking. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, that's really true what you're saying about that. The same setup, and no matter how many people it can be, if your brain's used to going into that certain setup, that's really true. And also, like, performing for yourself, and then if the audience dig it, they dig it. But then I kind of go into a bit of an imagination zone in my when I'm just really. I'm conscious that I'm not over performing, but I'm just really into the music, into what I'm doing. And I think if you keep it authentic, like the minute you start trying to perform, is to start thinking, right? You start thinking again, that if you think, oh, I'm here, there's that inner voice that's going to come back again. The same thing I was saying when when you're trying to sleep before a show, or whatever anxiety you're going through at the time. So in a way, I think like as you probably maybe agree, is like a form of meditation as well, music and performing, where people meditate and stuff, and you're really zoned into that. Nothing else matters for that hour.
No, I think the what you've just said kind of can relate to recording as well. When you're trying to do something in a recording booth, you can overthink it too much, and when you do it, even it can be something really simple, but if you overthink it because you're nervous about doing it, you never get it. You know what I mean? You have to kind of separate yourself from it and just go, "Whoa, what is going on here?" Just calm down. Because so many times, I mean, I've been in the studio, and not just with Ali and stuff like that, but I've just been trying to hit the simplest harmony, and it's gone. It's just, and it's really embarrassing because, what's this dude, man? He's supposed to have traveled all over the world, done all these shows, he can't even get this harmony. Oh my God. And I'm like, oh my God, that's what they're thinking. Oh my God, this is so embarrassing. Just get me out of here, But
it's that overthinking as well, isn't it? How do you like relax in terms of your do you do any like meditation or anything like that, or what's your thoughts on that kind of obviously it's a big industry as well, ain't it? There's a lot of people out on YouTube. There's people like Eckhart Tolle and stuff, who's really interesting thinker. And do you kind of delve into that world of looking at those kind of things?
No, mate. I was brought up old school, mate. I was brought up with the old boys that just, smoked 100 fags a day and drank till they passed out, and then just did a gig the next day again.
Yeah,
I genuinely, I respect it. I'm not saying I don't. I judge people who do it. It's fine. It obviously works for people, but for me, I've never ever been like that. I mean, I used to smoke 20, 30 cigarettes a day when I was on the tour. I used to drink like a fish.
Yeah.
I don't anymore, and I simply did it back then because I was young and I could. As you start to arrive at the latter years, the middle age, you kind of see the effects that's having on your body. And I've got a family, I've got kids, you know what I mean? I've got a wife. It was affecting them, so I don't really drink anymore. I do now and again. I don't smoke at all. I haven't smoked for about 5 years. And I don't really miss it. I think it becomes like a crutch. It's a habit thing. Once you get out on the road, you're away from home, spark a fag up, grab a beer. I mean, it's like on tour, like when you're backstage. There's fridge racks full of beer, there's spirits, there's wine. It's all free. It's just so accessible. Do you know what I mean? You just drink till you fall over. You know what I mean? And it's there again the next day. So it becomes.
But that's why I like sometimes like driving myself to shows, because if you're going to get driven around, you get more chance. If you know you have to have the responsibility.
Valley, I never drove anywhere. We always had the driver. Do you know what I mean? So I could do whatever.
You could do what you want.
I actually saw a picture of myself once at a certain point in my life, at a certain age. I think I was about 37, 38. And I saw a picture of myself, and I reminded myself of Oliver Hardy from Laurel and Hardy.
All right.
And I nearly died.
Can we cut now and put that picture in?
But yeah, I nearly died of death because you don't realise it because you're doing it. You know what I mean? In the mirror, you always look the same.
Yeah.
So I went up to about 17 and a half stone. It was ridiculous, You saw this big fat bloke bubbling around on stage, and I thought, no, I've got to do something about it.
I think everyone reaches that point, don't they? When you look at yourself, or you think, well, and just how you feel, really, not even how you look, how you feel. You think, well, something's got to change, and I think you eventually do change. Anyway, Matt, just to get back to your touching on your early childhood, there, you mentioned when you was talking earlier, you was mentioning your mum said to you about the singing lessons and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
And you come from a single parent environment and that as well. How important is that relationship with you and your mum as well? Growing up as well, because the same with me. I'm from a single parent environment, and that relationship becomes even more bonded, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think having my father sadly pass away 3 months before I was born, my mum actually passed away when I was 25 as well, from cancer as well. So,
shit. Sorry.
That's okay, thanks, mate. But going back to when I was born, it was being a single parent thing. It's like you're like a team. Do you know what I mean? It's just the two of you against the world. And obviously we were in a council flat in Selly Oak in Birmingham. And she was, a single parent, and she was a cleaner. She did cleaning in the morning, she cleaned on the night. And then when I kind of become of age and I was old enough, I was 13, 14, going to secondary school, and I was waking up at 5 in the morning and going on the bus into town to do a cleaning job, and then coming home, putting my school uniform on, going to school, coming home, and then taking it off, and then going back into town to do another one, coming home, having something to eat, doing my homework. And that was 5 days a week for me at one point. Yeah. So we just did everything as a team together. So it's very, like you said, they're precious. At the time you don't realise it, but they're very precious times, those.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And memories and,
Well, the same with sorry, man.
No, go on, carry on. Go on.
No, I was just saying the same with the parallels with what you're saying there with myself, is that my mum brought me and my brother up, and then later my sister single-handedly on her own, and we actually would go to work with her as a cleaner as well, with my mum as well, and those moments where where you don't really realise that actually your mum's struggling there, but she's making everything fun. Like we had some of the best times, like me and my brother using our imagination, and she used to clean for the army barracks, down in Greenwich, and we would use our imagination and like pretend we're in the army, and and while she was the cleaner there and that as well. So it's like those memories are really precious, aren't they?
They really are. I mean, my mum used to clean banks and stuff like that, and offices, and she used to clean a place, Barclays Bank in Cottridge in Birmingham, and I used to pretend I was one of the cashiers. You know what I mean? And all that kind of stuff. Flicking through, going, well, what does this? Oh, that's a pay-in slip. And then doing my homework at one of the big desks and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was great. And then getting the buses everywhere, because we used to get 2 buses everywhere, and even in the winter, in the freezing cold, standing waiting for buses and. They're definite life lessons, and they brought me up. She brought me up to be so appreciative of the things in life when you finally do start getting them.
Definitely. If you don't mind me asking, did she see your success with UB40 and that as well?
No, not with UB40. No, she. I did a standing gig for somebody. With Boy George and Culture Club back in the day. That would have been in 96, 97. And she managed to see that, but I was just standing in. I did the NEC Arena. But she did come to some of my early gigs when I was in my first originals band, which was called Joe Junk, which was a phenomenal band, which we'll talk about in a bit. But but yeah, she did come. We played Ronnie Scott's, and we did the whole thing up into London and played the Mean Fiddler and the Orange Club and all that kind of stuff. She came to those shows, and she was just so over the moon just to see, and it's because we started getting such a following as well, and she just loved all that stuff. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, like I said, sorry to hear that about your mum, and you said you was in your 20s as well, and then growing up. So it must have been it's such an age to when you're just finding yourself as well, ain't you? Well, ain't we all still finding ourselves in some shape or form? But
I tell you what, mate, when some kids today, they don't realise how good they got it. But I wouldn't. I may maybe change a few things, but yeah, my mum passed away when I was 25, and then the year later, the whole of my family in the UK fell out with me as well.
Oh wow!
I was literally on my Todd. Do you know what I mean? So what we have now is like building it back and trying to scrape it through. But I'm with a wonderful woman, and we have been together for like 21 years now. I've got 2 beautiful kids. So it was all worth it in the end.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Is your wife musical as well? Is she?
Not at all.
Not at all. No. It's like a theme that goes through of you, right? No one's musical around you.
Well, the thing is, Paula and Eve, my daughter, they love music. Max, my son, he likes music, not as much as the other 2, but he would have it. He's got the pitch perfect voice, but he doesn't think he has.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but he's into rap music, and he's into Snoop Dogg and all that kind of, and Tupac and.
Cool, nice one, man. So let's move on now to if we can do. Let's move on to. So you're singing. You got some. You said you was doing some shows and stuff. You was doing a lot of shows up and down, a lot of dives and all that kind of thing. So you've earned your stripes. So how did that become like? From those kind of days to then having the opportunity with UB40?
Well, we did all those kind of shows, and we got to a point where we got noticed by record companies, Sony. It was a subsidiary of Sony, and that kind of started to work out, and then that kind of fell apart, unfortunately.
And is this the view as a solo artist, was it, or was it a band?
No, this was a band. This was a band called Joe Junk, and some of the members have gone on to do, extraordinary things. The talent that was within that band is exceptional. Carl Brazil, the drummer, he went on to be drummer for Feeder. James, he's currently James Blunt's drummer. He's Robbie Williams' drummer. Sean, the keyboard player, he's Ollie Murs, his musical director. He's just playing with everybody, Sean. Yeah. So it was just a shame it all fell apart. I mean, we're all still in touch, but I did a little something with Wet 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 when they kind of split up, and then that never worked out. And so in the end, I just thought, look, I'm going to have to get an agent or something and just start doing session musicianing just to pay the bills more than anything. And that's what happened. I got an agent, and then the one day she phoned me up. She said, Ali Campbell's looking for a backing vocalist. You interested? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And at that point, I'd done big shows as like one-offs, but I'd never toured or anything like that. And I went down and met the musical director. I mean, this story's like of old now with a lot of people I've done interviews with, but we met the musical director, and he said, you're from Birmingham. Alice knows you're from Birmingham, so you've got the gig. And I was like, right, okay.
Yeah.
He said, there's 25 songs here. Learn them as best you can. Do what you feel is natural. We've got rehearsals next week. So I was like, okay, fine. So I did that. Turned up at rehearsals a week later, and everything I'd done was wrong. Ali was turning up an hour after that. So I kind of managed to get about half the stuff done in rehearsals, which was really embarrassing with Ali Campbell turning up because I'd never met him before. I was literally shitting it with him, knowing he was turning up, not knowing the songs and everything. But the following week, then we went on tour. We went to Berlin, and we played 7,000 people in a theatre in Berlin. And Ali was I just said, look, I'll get this. Don't worry, I'll sort it. I know you will. He said, be fine. He said, that's what rehearsals are for. Just be cool and just do your best. And I actually learnt the show over the years being on the road, because we didn't really rehearse much with UB40.
I suppose it's different as well if you like you joining a band like the Jewelers and myself. You can go listen to the guitar parts. They're all like from previous albums. They're there. You learn your parts. But if you with harmonies and stuff, it's something you need to work out together, and your voice is blending and stuff as well.
Absolutely. I know, and Ali kind of even said to himself, like halfway through my time with them, like we developed how he had his sound with Robin. We kind of developed our own sound with his kind of UB40, as it were. And as I said, we never really rehearsed that much because fortunately the new band was just full of session musicians, Slowly and Winston, as we've spoke about before, and Michael Martin. They were all professional session musicians that had played with them. So they were used to kind of just picking the tracks up from here and listening to the stuff in the hotel room, and they could come in the next day and play it. Ali wasn't used to that because with the original lineup, they were all self-taught. So they had to get in the rehearsal rooms and just play it out till it was bang on. Like a different so Ali
approach.
Would be in the hotel and he'd just go like, can we do Impossible Love tomorrow? And the guys are just listening in their room the night before, and they'd kind of come in and they'd have 80% of it down, and he loved all that. So we didn't bother rehearsing much.
So how, like, you just talking about you was listening to UB40 as a kid as well, and it's one of your bands that you was into, and so like that must have been a bit of a surreal moment as well, with
it
being
really
in
was,
studio sessions and that.
It was, because I'll tell you why, because Labour of Love 2 was the album in 1990 that all the cool kids, everybody, at school I was a bit shy. I wasn't one of the popular kids at all. So to skip ahead 20 years and then be actually stood next to the bloke that all the kids at school were just like mad over, and there was like Astro there as well and blah, blah, blah. The first time I did Red, Red Wine it was literally a pivotal moment in my life, I think, because UB40 like the Beatles from Birmingham, so to be stood there singing that song with the bloke off the telly on top of the pops who sang that song, doing it with him in front of an audience that as soon as he started singing, it just kind of erupted. It was definitely a moment, and it never got old either. Even though you knew it was coming, it was the same old thing. You'd done it night after night. It never got old. It was
it's something about like we was talking off camera before, but it's like his voice. He's still still hitting it today, and he's still doing touring. Is like that voice in that genre is just unbeatable. It's just
absolutely,
and it's a kind of like I do my solo stuff and that as well, but I put cover songs together, and he's one of them voices where there's certain covers you go, okay, I can do that, I can bash that tune out, and then I did like I was playing a show last month, I think it was just like a solo thing, like a small thing I was doing, and I put red wine in the thing, and it was just like, it don't suit my vocal, you know. It's not hitting my, certain people just go, just leave that one, like, and I think Ali's got that. If it's not Ali on it, it's like, you know.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing what you have to do with being in that unit for so many years. You kind of, even though I've left that now because for certain reasons, you kind of have to separate the politics and the music. You kind of, just because what's happened has happened, I still have to respect them as musicians and as songwriters and performers, and what UB40 represents as a band and throughout the years. Do you know what I mean? What they've achieved. Because before I joined the band, I loved UB40 music. So I'm not just going to stop liking their music because something's changed, you know, personally. And I will always respect Ali's voice, and you know, he has got one of the most distinctive voices that's ever come out of this country.
And of course, like working with Astro as well, and
I mean, Astro is one of the best frontmen I've ever seen. The guy never ever got nervous. I've never seen him nervous. Do you know what I mean? He made the show when he came in, because he kind of came in halfway through my time with them. He made it a pleasure to be on stage with, because there was always laughs and jokes. If we wanted, we was always messing about. You know, the crowd never noticed, but we were always messing about. And it was such a laugh. And he is one of the best frontmen that's ever lived, I think, Astro.
So a really like easy musician to work with as well, was he? Like in the rehearsals and stuff like that.
Yeah, God, yeah. He was one of the easiest people in general to get on with. There was no pressure with Astro. He was always cracking jokes, as long as he got his spliff and his little drink, and you know, he got his music, and it's just chat, and there was no stress at all, ever, you know. But he was sadly missed, you know.
Really sadly missed. Really sad. And also he played on your solo record, right? He did. He featured on that as well. So how did that come about?
Well, it was the pressure of, well, not the pressure, but the constant messages and emails that I got asking if I got any music out there, and were you going to do anything. And when I kind of gave in and just thought, right, I'm just going to write an album, put it out, and then just see what happens, see what people think. And I wrote the track Happy, surrounding my thoughts on mental health issues, because I just wanted something uplifting. And there was a section in the middle that needed a rap. And I just said to him, I said, it was off the cuff. I thought he'd actually say no, to be fair.
Yeah.
And I just said, I said, people are listening to this, what I've done so far, and they all think it sounds a little bit UB40-ish. Would you just write a little rap for it and sing it? And he went, yeah, man, no problem. And I was like, whoa, wicked.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And he just took it. He just took it, and he wrote the rap, which is like 4 bars, or I don't know, is it 8 bars? I don't know. Might be 16 even. But he just recorded it in his own studio at home, and then just sent it back to me, and that was it. We got it mastered. And
wow! And this was after you left UB40. This was after,
no.
Or this was all before, was it?
I actually recorded it in 2017, 2018, I think, around about that time. So yeah, we were still touring. We were still on the road. We were still doing the UB40 thing, and I actually won a World Songwriting Award for Happy. Because I don't know what it was. It was one of them songs that was so easy to write. I told you, we wrote it in 20 minutes. People just connected to it like it was, I don't know, it was like jam on a blanket, just stuck. And people just went, oh my God, this is ridiculous. This lifts me up when I'm down. If I need to go out and I need a bit of positivity, I'll whack that song on. Or if I'm feeling a bit down, I'll put Happy on. And it was like a barrage constantly. I still get messages now saying, thank you for Happy. It's just made my day. You've saved my life, literally.
And did that inspire you to then do more of your original stuff as well? Did that set off like a thing where you wanted to record more and more solo stuff as well?
I think so. I think that album that I put together was kind of just for the sake of putting something together. The second album was me going, right, okay, I'm actually going to do something that I want to do now and kind of concentrate on it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And that's what the last album was, Strong. And Strong is kind of like Happy's big brother. It's kind of the next sequel, the next extension to it. It's about positivity, it's about being strong. And the whole album, I've managed to work with some amazing, my manager at the time, who I'm no longer with, he brought in some wonderful musicians for me to work with on that album. We had Patricia Lacey, who was Luther Vandross's backing singer on Strong. I did an amazing duet with a lady called Desi DeLuro from Los Angeles. I had Walter Chancellor Jr., who played sax for Prince on one of the tracks. Ricky Pageau, who plays keys for Madonna. He played on it, and he also did me like an interlude at the end of the album. You know, it was just phenomenal. I had some amazing people on there.
How much do you think of you kind of people's mental state and stuff? If it goes with their, corresponds to their creativity in a sense that it seems when you was talking about the process of that writing and stuff like that, I could sense the excitement and you felt like it's going through a very, very creative period in that time, So what's your approach to songwriting in terms of so what I mean by that is say, just done an amazing show. Next day I'll get the acoustic guitar and I'll write a song because I've been inspired by it. It was such a high that I'll be inspired to write. So do you think, getting in UB40 and stuff like that and doing all them big shows is then your creativity's gone, like that? Or also it can go the other way of when you're have really down times and your creativity is still what is the
well, I think for me, the album I've just done, I was fortunate enough to co-write it with a wonderful guy called James Crosdale, Elevation, he calls himself professionally, and he's just a phenomenal producer as well. And what I said to James was, when I first started writing it, was that just send me tracks. So he'd send me like a bass line and bass and drums, just rhythm. And if I felt something, then I would continue with it. If I didn't, I don't mess about. I just go, no, next. It has to be an instantaneous feeling that you go, oh yeah, there's something there, and then I'll work the rest out a bit further down the line. But James just sent me these tracks one after another, and every one he sent me, I was just like writing them within the hour because they were so inspiring. And the first one was Strong, which was the lead track off the album. And I always tend to, if I'm writing lyrics, I have to have a subject matter. So it's either like with Happy and Strong, the mental health direction comes in. And there was a track on there called Positive. But I also wrote a track about abuse and physical abuse and in the home and, that kind of stuff. But it's coming from the point of where it's the woman who's abusing the husband. So there was that on there.
Amber Heard in it.
Amber Heard in it, So there's a whole, and then James said, look, we've got a lot of political songs that we need to soften things up. He said, we need a baby maker. And that was Wonderland. And that's what the duet I did with Desi DeLuro from LA. And I wanted to do something which was the old school soul and R&B, like Lionel Richie did with Diana Ross and Marvin Gaye and Roberta Flack. It kind of harks back to that era. But I definitely think there has to be, there's nothing really in life, like you say, the show, if you have a good show, I would never, nothing like that would ever inspire me. I have to be locked in a room on my own and just away from it, isolated, I'm not that lucky where I can walk down the street and see a beautiful tree or a beautiful woman and go, oh, I need to write lyrics. There's something inspired. I find it really difficult to do. I have to, really concentrate.
So your approach to it's really interesting. I'm always interested in different people's approach to songwriting in general. Like mine's sitting there with acoustic guitar, melody first, then I'll probably put the lyrics on after and stuff, and then some people like yourself will write melodies over what other people produce, and which is another creative. And I've also got into that recently as well, but it's probably something that don't come as natural with me, is just strumming on the guitar first and then putting out a song like that. But and it's interesting putting light and shade in songs as well, because I went through a stage of like real Nirvana, quite angry kind of songwriting, and then doing the reggae and the soul was a lot more positive and upbeat. So I think if you mash all them together, you come up with something quite interesting, I think,
I think so. And I mean, my general approach to lyrics sometimes is, I feel it's like, oh God, this is going to be really hard. It's a chore. But after I've done it, I feel like it's one of the most enjoyable experiences within the last 2 hours I've done. The day. It's like I got, wow, what was the concern? What was the worry? I really enjoyed doing that. But then the next one will come along and I'll be like, oh God, what's this? Because I'm so I've got real lack of confidence in my own abilities with lyrics, even though everybody listens to my songs and goes, God, I can't believe you've written that. But every time I approach it, I think, was that just a fluke? And is this the one where it's going to be, ooh, I love you, baby, and they're going to see me as I'm a fraud and I can't really write lyrics, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I think I have that feeling every time.
Yeah, it's cool, man. Can we talk a little bit now, just to wrap, as we're coming to the end of this podcast now, but just want to talk a little bit about kind of mental health, and obviously it's well documented of yourself. You leave reasons why you are not playing with UB40 anymore, and if people can kind of look that up as well and see those reasons and stuff as well. But like, how much did that affect and is still maybe affecting your mental health? Or just can you talk a little bit about mental health in general?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, my mental health, my depression stemmed from when my mother passed away when I was 25. Yeah. So it was dealing with the whole concept of the loss of her at such a young age, and then my family as well falling out with me and not having them. So it was kind of being on my own and having to deal with that internally and getting through it.
That's a massive thing at that age as well, man. It's a big thing to deal with. Like, it's and especially you were just saying earlier in the interview how close you were and that,
Yeah, well, it's like, for me, it was like people always said, life is like chapters and you turn chapters. And for me, I suppose psychologically, it was like, well, I suppose that was the end of a chapter then. I need to turn it over and I need to, fight or flight? That phrase. And I was never going to give in. So I just kind of survived as best I could. But I think mental health then, after that point, it never leaves you. It's always there. And I do go through bouts of depression, and there are triggers that I kind of see myself going through, and I can deal with it, and it's not an issue anymore. But I think the last 2 years have definitely tested that way of thinking, because it's been the blip, I call it. It's been so unnatural for people to deal with, because people have never had to deal with anything like this in life. And I'm quite a strong person, and even I got to the point where I thought this is ridiculous. This can't carry on. There was so many reports of how many people were supposedly dying of COVID. I'm at home thinking, well, they need to be reporting on the real deaths of all the people that are committing suicide through mental health issues and that are not getting the attention, and people that are dying of cancer that are not getting sorted, and people with diabetes, people with heart condition. All these people just got forgot about, you know what I mean? Due to COVID. So it was a real incredibly tough time for not just me, for everybody. And I think that's why I kind of locked myself away and wrote that last album, because it took me away for a while.
All those buzz questions. No, so like, what's next for you with your creativity and your music? Have you got any plans for like any albums coming out, or are you still songwriting and that as well? And
yeah, I'm kind of writing for a few other different artists. I'm writing for, you know, some little film and TV little things that come up where other people that ask me to do stuff for them, I'll do. But I'm actually venturing into promoting shows as well soon as well. So that's really exciting me. It's kind of, I think that the 2 years where it all happened, it was because my career got eradicated. It was thinking of other ways to earn a living musically and still staying in the same industry. So songwriting was part of it. But as you know, as a songwriter, you know, Spotify and iTunes and all those kind of it's not where the money's at anymore, unfortunately. You know, we know we've got publishing deals, but it's still not where the money's at. It's all about live performing. So doing that, thinking about the promoting, going into live music, looking at it from, instead of being on the stage, actually putting people on the stage, and I'm getting quite excited by it. Actually, it's a new venture, and it's like you think you know something because you've done festivals and you've done big shows, and you think you know all about it, but coming from the perspective of actually organising it and putting it on it's blown my mind. I didn't realise all what went into this kind of stuff. You know, you kind of take it for granted when you're part of the act.
Yeah, definitely, man.
So
keep me in mind with a little slot on that as well.
You're down on the list already, mate. Don't worry about that.
Always hustling, mate. Always hustling. Well, Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you very much for having a chat with me today. And
pleasure, mate.
Just finally, like, if people can want to see what's going on with your festivals or your promotion, like you were just talking about, what's going on with your career?
Anything. If you want to hook me up on socials, it's all Matt Hoy Official, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And I'm also matthoyofficial.co.uk. That's the website. Just come and say hi, man. I'm always there. Don't be a stranger. You know, come and enjoy the music and come and enjoy the banter, because we have lots of stuff to talk about as well, man. Yeah,
well, you're a very open person as well, Matt, and I've really enjoyed, you know, this conversation and seeing your story up until now, and hopefully we'll have to do a part 2 at some point as well. And
look forward to it.
Nice one, dude. Thank you very much, man.
Take it easy, bro. Look after.